love a confident man. We love a confident man. I cannot believe I'm pausing this right now. You don't even have to know anything about this book to know the intensity of the scene that I'm listening to right now. They just got together. First time. Our love interest just got together for the first time. And I'm pausing it to film this video because I have to go to the gym. Wow, I wasn't ready for that. And they're about to go fight each other after this, like to the death. I'm really loving this book. It's The Serpent and the Wings of Night. I honestly started it because I knew there were vampires and like that kind of lore, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily like the vampire type that I like. I think this one is very fae feeling, not vampire feeling. Yes, they drink blood, but I would argue that's the only vampire-esque thing about them. I want to apologize if you hear a ton of background noise. I'm running my dishwasher, my washing machine, and my dryer right now. And I'm not really sure why I thought doing all of that right before filming was the smart move, but here we are. Okay. Hi, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Danny, and I'm going to be talking about my Q1 reads. Right, listen, I am reading. I just started reading with any regularity, and I know a lot of people go into resolutions or like book goals for the year, like a 25 to 50 range. My book goal is 9. So with a reading goal of 9, I did read 5 books in Q1. So I'm not mad because that would get me to 20 and I would be really, really proud of myself. I am so proud of myself, I really do. Look at my Goodreads. I was gonna say, I'm not even sure which one I read first. I'm reading, I think, like 5 books right now. I have one that's an audiobook, so I've actually read 6. But the first book this year is the reason I got into reading in the first place. I genuinely did not see myself reading more than the 9 books that I planned, hence planning the 9 books. But when I was making my New Year's resolutions, I was so dead set on reading just 9 books. I figured it was attainable. I didn't want to set myself up for failure. Little did I know this book was going to take over my life, and this book series has, I think, 11 books, so I was immediately going to go over it. That's if I don't read the rest of the universe, which I want to. So I was doomed from the start. For so many years I said that I hated fiction books, and everyone that I know that I'm friends with insisted that I just hadn't found a book that I loved yet, but I tried so many times and listened to so many people's opinions on books that are very popular that people love, and I just did not like them. I couldn't do it, and this book broke that pattern for me. And this series is the Zodiac Academy series, and honestly, if you've watched any of my other vlogs, this is not surprising. I love this universe. What I love about this universe is it's not painfully world building, and I know that a lot of people like that. I don't actually want to read 12 pages about the way the room looks. If I can't exactly picture what's going on, it makes reading so distracting for me because I am so visual that I feel like mentally I'm deterring from what the author wants, and I'm trying to picture this thing in my head and I can't stand it. I'm like, why am I still reading about this? And I did find a specific type of writing that I value, and it's character building. So the fact that this like touches on the scenes but doesn't completely engulf the book, and it also is so plot driven while having beautifully written spice, I'm obsessed. My laundry is done. This one specifically, the first one, when I was reading it, I had a difficult time at first just because I was so skeptical. I'm so skeptical. I genuinely picked this up because it says the word Zodiac on it, and Gabby Sachet, who was probably my first book person that I followed because she also goes to the gym and she talks about books, and she posted Zodiac Academy, and I was like, you know what? I could probably get behind Zodiacs. So I went to Barnes & Noble and I read the back, and it just says something about a dragon, cardinal magic, vampires, and I was like, oh, oh, that was all you had to say? That was all you had to say? Cardinal magic, vampires, and dragons? I'm in. And the FMCs aren't whiny. They have real trauma, real worldly issues that I don't find to be insufferable like a lot of FMCs that I read. I am such an FMC hater, which is so annoying because I'm a girl's girl. I hate the damsel in distress, but oh my god, she's the most powerful person in the world narrative. And I find that all of the books that I've read that are like fantasy driven have FMCs like that, and that's not the girl for me. I want a girl that's like very strong-willed and almost doesn't like passively fall into a powerful magical system casually. Bees, fae specifically, I feel like just humans that have powers. It gives fae a whole new meaning because their orders are all different types of magical beasts, and they are very primal and act in a way that like the beast that they are would act. So it's just more realistic, if you can even say that. I honestly could talk about this forever, so we're gonna move on because I have more of the series later. Rated this a 4 out of 5. I'm just gonna read what's on my Goodreads. I said, slow first half, a lot of relationship character building that I value now that I'm through it. Again, I think this was just like me getting into fiction. Incredible commitment to creatures' nature and how that would apply in a human exchange. It's incredible. Like the way that they approach that makes me wish that everyone would stop saying that a human with magical powers was a fae. Show me how they're not human. And I feel like these creatures are just not, they're very obviously not human, and I love it. The second book that I finished for the year is actually a nonfiction book, and it is Diary of a CEO by Stephen Bartlett. There's not a whole lot to say about this because it is a business book, so I'm obviously not going to give like a synopsis of everything that he covers. A lot of business books I find, and this one is no exception, from chapter to chapter it's more so just different rules and things that you can apply as you become a leader and also come into business decisions that you would not be able to actually have the knowledge for in order to succeed in this space. So I loved this book when I started it. The first, honestly, like 75% of this book I thought was brilliant. I thought this was going to be a reread for me. And the last 25% I feel completely fell off. It lost me entirely. I'm actually kind of disappointed. I would argue that I wanted to kind of recommend this to people. I would even talk about it when I first started it, just like saying that I wanted like my previous boss to read it, and I just thought that this was so insightful in so many ways. And then the end was just reiterating quotes from people that he had interviewed. So if you don't know, Stephen Bartlett has a podcast called Diary of a CEO where he interviews top CEOs for these massive companies, and it's so wonderful because you essentially get to listen to them talk about their inner workings and their thought processes and why they approached the entrepreneurship path and how they integrated themselves into new business infrastructures that they wanted to create. And delicious. Ate it up, truly. Again, 75% of the way. And then the last 25%, he has that podcast, and it felt like he was just putting the quotes down on paper, and that's where it lost me. I, again, rated this 3 stars out of 5, and I said started out great, ending felt really muddy. The ending felt too quote reliant, whereas the first half had valuable insight. I still love his podcast, but this book was really sad. I kind of wish I would have stopped reading it when I did. I'm not gonna lie, I forgot what happened in this book, and I opened it to a spicy scene. I can't talk about it if you want to read this, so I'm not gonna talk about it. I'm not gonna talk about it. Okay, this is the third book that I read in Q1, and this is Zodiac Academy Book 2, Ruthless Fae. I rated this book 5 out of 5. I devoured this. I think I read this in a week. I read this in 3 days. I got it on February 5th. I ended on February 8th. That's 5 days. I'm not good at math. Is it February 8th? Oh, February 5th to the 8th is 3 days. Jesus. Let's just ignore that was so embarrassing. But this book, I physically could not put it down. I was mad that I had to do anything but read this book. Everything that was established in the first book just became so juicy, and you started to like the characters a little bit more. There was more like intrigue and understanding, and also just stuff that the bully romance in this book really revs up and you're like, what the heck is going on? But also you have to understand these are creatures, so you're kind of like, I get it, but what the heck is going on? Oh my god, this devoured. I devoured it. You get answers to some power plays and a little bit more insight on an establishment of magic for some of the primary characters, and it's really fascinating. You also get a run-in and a first introduction to, I don't want to say the bad guy, but the evil that is within this book series, and what kind of initiates that storyline of it not just being about students, it being about like a worldly power play with evil in the shadows. That was a good joke. That was a good joke. 5 out of 5. This next book that I read in 5 days. I think I would have not finished it as quickly. I honestly read it in 2 days, and it's because I bought it in the airport, read it on both of those plane rides, was on a trip for 4 days, and then read it on both of the plane rides again. I need to stop taking recommendations from people, to be so honest. I saw this book all over Book Talk, and when I was in the airport looking at the bookstore, because our flight had gotten delayed so many times, we were like, let's go buy a book. I didn't bring a book. I didn't think we were gonna, you know, be there that long. I rated this 2.5 stars. And it just kind of made me realize, one, that I love the series now because it felt so rushed, and the irony of that is this book is literally a part of a series. 2, character development is so important to me. And 3, there actually is such thing as too much spice. I bought this version. It has the sprayed edges, not because of the sprayed edges, but because of how beautiful this is. I took the cover off because I just find that to be ugly, but I find this to be stunning. I actually display this on my bookshelf. I think it's so gorgeous. This is Her Soul to Take by Harley LaRoe. This book read like demon erotica meets Twilight. And if you've watched Twilight as an adult and you know that it's bad, that's what I mean. This writing felt like there were 2 stories going on, and I got to know more about the erotica side than I did the plot, which was so disappointing because I find the plot of this book to be fascinating. I think it's so interesting. So the whole point of the whole premise of this book, it is a trilogy, and there is our FMC who moves back home to, basically she is really into paranormal activity. She has a YouTube channel for it. She comes home because her YouTube channel is kind of flopping, and she knows that there's a lot of suspicion and talks about her hometown being paranormal and having mysterious things happen. And she's just interested in reconnecting with some friends. She's going to school, and she's gonna just live in her parents' old cabin, right? There is a family in this town that is well known, and they are essentially in charge of this cult, and they interlock unknowingly for reasons that you can read about if you decide to read this. But the family that runs the cult has a demon under their control through a grimoire, and this girl meets this demon, and that's the love interest. The issue with this is he's randomly obsessed with her. It happens like this. It's almost whatever the opposite of a slow burn is. Like, it is a lighter. It was immediately on fire, and it came out of seemingly nowhere, and you don't really care that they're together because it came out of nowhere. It's so fast. And I don't necessarily think that I'm a fan of the massive slow burn if there's no payoff. If like side characters had payoff, I think I'd be fine with a slow burn for quite some time. I mean, I can't talk about it, but Zodiac Academy has something like that. And this book, I find, has the most fascinating story. Like, that storyline is so cool, and it could have been played into so well, and there's so many deaths around this town. And in this book specifically, it was just about like the main character's entire personality became her kinks and what she liked. And that was really all you read about. In terms of spice, I would say if that's something that you just love to read, like you might love this book. I know a lot of people like this book, but I found that it just kind of felt inserted into a story where it didn't really make sense. Like it felt like two bunnies going at it. I also have an issue with how the spice was written because sometimes spice doesn't feel natural. It feels like someone is detailing what they're into, and I don't like when authors do that. I think Colleen Hoover does that, and it's kind of gross to me. I don't want to know what you're into, girl. I don't want to know. And if you read enough Colleen Hoover books, all of the scenes start to, you know, have the same sound to it, and this book had the same feel. You knew exactly what the author thought was attractive, and there was really no deviation from it. But I didn't really care for the couple. Honestly, one of them could have died and I wouldn't cared. Ironically, even though I rated this a 2.5, I will be reading the second and third, and that's because those two books are a continuation of the same story but different characters, and the other two FMCs are so much cooler than the one that in this book. I did not like the FMC in this book, and it just ruined the whole book for me. I found her to be kind of insufferable, honestly. Where's your personality, girl? You gave it up for a guy the second you met him. The next book that I read was an audiobook. I read the Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. I have a hard time with Mel Robbins books because I listen to her hour to 2 hour podcasts religiously. Like, I think for the last, it's probably been only 2 years that she's had a podcast. Feels like forever, but since she started the podcast, I have been listening religiously. That being said, if you don't listen to Mel Robbins' podcast, you would not know that the book is based off of an episode that she did with her daughter. And from this episode, they wrote a book off of it. The episode, golden. It is a golden episode. I do think you can listen to that episode and not read the book. But I ended up rating it a 4.5 out of 5, which shocked me. I didn't want to finish it. I kind of felt like I was hearing the same stories from podcasts that I listened to, and so it almost felt like a reiteration of podcasts. And I don't like that specifically because I do find it to be a disservice to her regular listeners. I genuinely wish there was content that was saved specifically for the book so that it was a whole and complete new experience for everyone involved, especially because her regular listeners are the people that are going to jump to get the book. There, I believe it was after the first 4 chapters or 5 chapters, completely turned around, ate it up. I was listening to this, I wanted to like write down notes as I was listening to it. That's something I don't like about audiobooks, is you can't like highlight anything. No annotating, it's just listening, and I would just like keep rewinding to make sure that I was writing down the exact quote. I read this in about a week and a half, and this is the review that I put in my Goodreads. Kept getting better as I read. Early chapters were tough to listen to due to repeat stories, references, etc. to her podcast. I find her books aren't always new info from her podcast episodes, so they don't cater to avid listeners. Deducted 0.5 for the accusatory tone that she tends to write in and speak in. And when I say that, I mean she does this in her podcast and in her books, and I just don't appreciate it. It's very, I know you're like this because I am narrative instead of feeling relatable. It feels the opposite because you can't apply your own experiences and feelings. This only happened until around chapter 6, and then the verbiage changed and it's more zoomed out. So I loved the back third of the book. I personally don't like the accusatory language. I know that it's supposed to be like a connection method to your listeners, and I can't get behind it. I find that you are doing your audience a disservice by saying, I know you're like this, when it is guaranteed to not apply to everyone listening. And don't get me wrong, there's only been times where I'm listening to any podcast that says like, I know you do this, and I'm like, yeah, I totally do. But to have it always be kind of emphasized as like, you're lying to yourself, you do this, you do it, and I know you do it because I do it. And that is a phrase that she says frequently, and so that was drilled in so hard the first handful of chapters that I almost was like, dude, please calm down. I loved the back end of this book, so it did earn the 4.5 stars. I genuinely find it to be so good, and if you haven't listened to her podcast at all, I think you should absolutely read this book. The last book that I finished in quarter 3 is Zodiac Academy Book 3, The Reckoning. I was kind of shocked because this book took me longer to read than the first 2 combined. This one I do think is when things get real. The biggest problem I had with this book is when you finish book 2 and you're going into book 3, something pretty substantial happens at the end of book 2, and then opening it up and it kind of being glazed over and not touched on, and I'm in book 4, halfway through book 4, and it still has not been touched on. It hurts, it's painful, and there's just so many things that happen in book 2 that are kind of like sprinkled on in this book, and nothing is completely confirmed, and new things happen to where like you just kind of move on. That was hard, and I know that it's going to come up later. It's just like adding to the pain of the slow burn, and the slow burn in this book series is so real, and in more ways than just romance. It's like development, power play, strength, all these things. But this one is about the lunar eclipse, and the students go into the reckoning, which is a test to decide whether or not they are powerful and strong enough to stay within the school. Zodiac Academy is only for people that pass the reckoning. So you can get into the school, and then essentially you'll get like dismissed, and you're kind of just into the general pop if you don't get to finish schooling. And the reckoning looks different for everyone depending on what elements of power they hold. And the whole premise of this book is the heirs essentially don't want the Vegas to pass their reckoning. This book specifically is a lot of bullying, power play. The thing that I do really love about this book is they play into moon cycles and astrology so hard. So when there's different eclipses and planets moving into certain situations, it emphasizes the feeling of said planet on the students, and the world of Solaria is just like, hey, this planet's moving into this, so hope no one dies tonight. I did rate this book a 5 out of 5, but I quite literally wrote, I wish I could rate this book more than 5 stars. I don't know how to say what I want to say without spoiling. A relationship in this book, a couple of relationships in this book. The people in this book start to devour your heart. They start to devour your heart at this point. This book, it took me so much longer to finish, because the beginning I was so disappointed at the lack of connection from the previous book that I just stopped reaching for it. And then when I finally picked it up, I was like, actually shut up. The ending of this book, I was giggling and squealing. Giggling, squealing, kicking my feet. The end of this book. The boys in this book, every single freaking one of them. Every single one of them. And there's like 7. I'm just gonna grieve this so hard when this is over, and I'm not even halfway done. Not even halfway done. I think this one's pretty long too. That might have been another reason why it took me so long to finish it. This is over 700 pages. This book, I would say the POVs really started ramping up. Almost every chapter is a completely, entirely new like character's POV, and characters that you already know and love or hate. So that makes it even more fun, because you're just reading, like I said, all angles, just fully understanding and immersed in this realm of the universe. And I don't know, if you want to bury me with this, you can. I've never squealed at a book though until I read this one. I'm getting emotional that this is eventually gonna end. But these are all the books I read in Q1. Highly recommend the Zodiac Academy series and Let Them Theory by Mel Robbins. The other ones, I don't want to say you can pass on them, but I also don't want to eagerly say to read them. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video on my Q1 reading goal. I'm gonna go to the gym. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe, because it really supports my channel. And I post twice a week. So if you like long form content, I'm your girl. All right, talk soon. Fear I have to eat lunch. Maybe I shall have a snack instead. I need to go to the gym. 1 o'clock. Oh my god.